Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, November the 19th, is my birthday. It's tough becoming 25 for the 22nd time. Feels like Groundhog Day. And I was asked at short notice to be here with you this evening. And I could not think of any better way to celebrate my birthday than in honoring the greatest American of the 20th century. America makes a mistake when it thinks that Martin Luther King was an African American. It makes a bigger mistake when it thinks that he was a black leader. When we go through African American communities and we see the name Martin Luther King Boulevard, it so limits his reach. It so constrains his impact. Rather, he was an American leader. Because 150 years ago today, Abraham Lincoln gave one of the two most famous speeches in American history, the Gettysburg Address. And he started by saying that 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that if a black child in the South picking a soccer ball in 100-degree heat can't use a water fountain, then people are not equal. And it doesn't take a neuroscientist to see that if a black woman has to walk to the back of a bus as if she's a second-class citizen, then people are not equal. The United States is the greatest nation in the world that lived with the greatest contradiction conceivable. How can our greatest president get up and say that all men are created equal in a country that patently practices precisely the opposite? Martin Luther King was the greatest American because he restored America to its founding ideals and he ended our shame. But what's a rabbi? Short and bearded, doing closing, a dedication ceremony to a statue of Martin Luther King. Because, my friends, we in the Jewish community owe Martin Luther King as much as anyone else. Not because he ended segregation and racism, because of all the places where the Jewish community has faced extermination and slaughter and ghettoization. Thank God the United States was not one of those places. We rather owe Martin Luther King because he was a modern prophet who took our Bible and our ancient Hebrew prophets and brought them back to life and made the Hebrew Bible a manifesto of freedom. To the extent that everything in life is providential, do you know that in the Jewish community we read a different portion of the Hebrew Bible every week? And do you know what today's portion is? There are 53 portions divided into 7 sections. Today's portion is a story of Joseph being sent by Jacob to his brothers who were shepherding. And his brothers despised him. And as he arrived, they looked at him and they said to him famously, "Behold, here cometh the dreamer. Come, let us slay him, and let us see what shall become of his dreams." Does that strike a chord with anyone here? It's the slab of marble that Ralph Abernathy chose to put 1 week after the King assassination in April 1968, right outside room 306 of the Lorraine Motel. "Behold, here cometh the dreamer. Come, let us slay him, and let us see what shall become of his dreams." Because the night before, that dream was at least physically ended. In one of the great pieces of oratory ever articulated in the history of mankind, a man who had a cold and who decided he would not go to the Mason Temple because he was not feeling well, sent his best friend, Ralph Abernathy, to speak in his place. But thousands of people were about to riot. So Abernathy calls Martin Luther King and he says to him, "Martin, you better get here or they're going to tear the roof down." And there was terrible weather, and the tin roof sounded the crackle of all the rain that fell, but he pulled himself out of bed and he went to the church, and with no notes, belting out a speech from the heart, he famously said, "Tonight I am fearing no man. Longevity has its place, but God has taken me to the top of the mountain, and I know that we as a people will get there." And as a child who studied these speeches and started to memorize many of them, I always asked myself, tonight I am fearing no man? There was a bomb on his plane 10 hours before that. There were white racist assassins that were combing through the South that wanted to end his life, and indeed he would be dead in less than 20 hours later, felled by an assassin's bullet at 6:01 p.m. on April the 4th, 1968. So why wasn't he afraid? My friends, he never said he wasn't afraid. He never said, "Tonight I have no fear." He said, "Tonight I am fearing no man." When you fear God, you don't fear man. When you live for the high dream of every human being created in the image of God, then no man can end that dream. Because there's no man that's as powerful as God. Martin Luther King had one title throughout his life, and that title was Reverend. It wasn't senator, and it wasn't president, and it wasn't congressman, and it wasn't assemblyman, and it wasn't mayor, and it was Reverend. He was proud of the fact that he was a man of God, and it was the dream of God that his children would live as equals. And we must erect this statue because we must pay homage and show reverence. I must say in conclusion, my friends, there are three approaches to observing the grandeur of life. One is to see an electrifying man and to take pleasure from his oratorical skills, his electrifying personality, and that's kind of a selfish response. You see a great man as an entertainer. A second is to see him as a source of inspiration. He uplifts you. He makes you believe in things that are larger than yourself. But even that is not the highest form of living. No, the highest form of living is to look upon a great man and to be rendered passive and to simply behold. It's to be rendered insignificant in the face of something so much larger than ourselves. The highest form of living is to live humbly while we cast our eyes upon those whose contribution is so large that it becomes part of the infinite. And that's what we will do with this statue. May God bless each and every one of you who contribute. May God bless each and every one of you who had this vision. And more than anything else, may God now bless the United States of America, which was always blessed, but denied God's blessing in part when it could not see the spark of the infinite, the spark of the divine in every human being. And Martin Luther King gave us the eyes to see and the ears to behold. God bless you and thank you.